The following is a paid program and does not necessarily reflect the views of WSIC.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Putting the Pieces Back Together, brought to you by Purple Heart Homes. We're your hosts, Leah Gutierrez and Devin Alexander.
Oh, right. We didn't say Devil Dog Devin. Wow, that's, I don't get Devil Dog Devin anymore.
Trying to be a little more professional.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I'm trying to be professional. Oh, yeah. Well, is this a professional type show? I thought this was a show where we had fun and
we do have fun.
Oh, but in a professional manner. In a professional setting. You know, we have a real professional here.
We do have a real professional with us.
From the music industry.
Yes.
And but Miss Susan Rash is not just well-versed in all of the recording industry. She is also a board member of Tribute to the Troops.
Oh, that's so cool.
And the father-in-law to one of the recent recipients of Purple Heart Homes Tiny Homes.
Yes.
So, hello,
welcome.
Susan.
Hello. So nice to be here with both of you guys.
Thank
you for having me.
I'm surprised you said yes. I mean, I know knowing Leah is one of the hosts is probably what helped.
Yeah, that did it.
Thank you.
Wow. Well, thank you for coming out today.
Thank you.
You are deeply involved with a lot of various veterans things.
Yes.
And you're not a veteran yourself, though.
I am not. Well, they didn't offer that to me when I was, I'm old. And I remember the recruiters.
Not old.
I do remember the recruiters coming to our high school, but they did not speak to us.
You mean us, the girls?
Yeah.
That is a thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Back then they did not.
If you wanted to be in the military as a woman, you had to go and.
Was it did they have the women's corps or something at that time? There was a specific.
I don't even remember. I had no recall. I remember when the recruiters came to talk to the boys. But, it's funny because our daughter, it's a different situation. Our daughter, who's 30 now, she got a 35 on her ACT. So every university and college that she applied to, they were all after her. And one of the places she applied was West Point. And, you have to start early because you have to get some kind of a congressional letter and all this stuff. And we happened to have a neighbor. This is when we lived in Nashville. And my husband is Rocky Lynn, the country singer and United States Army veteran. And we happened to live in this neighborhood where there was a retired 2-star brigadier general living around the corner. In fact, he was the commanding officer at Fort Bragg when Rocky was serving at Bragg. So he said he only used to salute the guy as he was walking by in the morning. He never knew that this guy would end up being his neighbor. But anyway, his name was General Edison Scholes, and he was the person who actually promoted the woman who later became the first female 4-star general in the United States Army.
Wow.
General Ann Dunwoody. Mm-hmm. He gave her first promotion. I think he made her brigadier. I mean, he made her something. I can't remember. I wasn't in the military. But anyway, he gave her first major command post. So when our daughter was thinking about going to West Point, we thought, well, we should go talk to her and bring Allie to meet her. And then that way she could talk to a woman who really made a very successful career in the United States military. So we went to see her, and Ann Dunwoody's people had our name on the placard in the parking lot with her general symbol, and then they treat us like royalty. We went into her office, and she sat and talked to Allie for a long time about her advancement, and she started out in ROTC, and that's eventually ended up as a 4-star general. So anyway, so we went to West Point for the tour, and our daughter was walking around with the plebe, and we were walking around with the parents, and the plebe was telling her all kinds of awful stories about what it was like to be a woman at West Point. Because they don't sugarcoat it. They don't want you to think it's Fantasy Island or something. I mean, you're going to West Point.
Oh yeah.
And so when the tour was all over, we were on the parents' tour, she was on the plebe tour, and then we went back into the room with the recruiter, and he said, "Okay, so what do you think?" And she said, well, it was right when they said that the Nostradamus prediction was the world was going to end the next year. And she said, well, if this is really the last year that we're all here next year's the last year we're all going to be here on Earth. I don't want to spend it at West Point.
Can you blame her?
So she went to the University of Alabama.
There you go. There you
Roll
go.
Tide.
Yep. Really can't blame her.
So anyway, being in the military was not offered as an option for me.
Yeah.
But yes. So.
Wow. Well, but you do have a lot of military ties with Tribute to the Troops.
Yes.
So how did you get involved with that?
Okay, so I met Rocky. Tribute to the Troops was 2 years in the making, and I've been part of that charity ever since. Because when you're married, your husband's interests often become your interests, and that's sort of what happens. So, but you guys probably know what Tribute to the Troops does. Is that its main mission is to honor and remember those who have made the ultimate sacrifice. So even though we're honoring these fallen heroes, we're really more focused on honoring the families and those who are left behind. So we go to their homes, a bunch of concerned citizens. We just stand in their yard and we let them know that their family sacrifice did not go unnoticed and that their hero sacrifice did not go unnoticed. And it's really like one of the nicest things I've ever seen a person do for another person, just because it's the right thing to do. And often these families, they don't know, they don't, especially if they're not a KIA, they get to the point where especially for the KIAs, there's a lot of hubbub when the hero first loses his life.
Right.
Sometimes parades, sometimes their caskets get escorted, sometimes they shut down Interstate 77 to bring the casket home. I mean, lots of hubbub. And for the suicides and non-combat related deaths, sometimes there's nothing. So when we show up on their front porch, it means a lot, because sometimes we're the first people to ever say, hey, we noticed there's an empty chair at your Thanksgiving table, and thank you for what your family has endured on behalf of the freedom that we all enjoy as free Americans. So yeah, it's a wonderful charity. And, we do raise money because people want to donate money. So the board, a long time ago, it's been in existence 21 years. A long time ago, the board got together and decided, rather than have to meet all the time and decide what are we going to do with our charitable dollars, they decided to start an education fund. So we buy 529 savings plans for children who've lost a parent in active duty.
Oh, my gosh.
A lot of people have said, oh, well, if you're KIA, your kids get their education for free, which is true. You can apply for Pell Grants and things to have your education covered if your parent lost their life in action. But if it wasn't in action, especially with an emphasis on suicide, a lot of times your kids don't get anything unless it was declared as in theater. So we provide that. And we even provide it for kids who are the children of KIA. Because when they graduate from high school, if they decide not to go to school, or say they want to go to culinary school in France or something like that, we try to do what their dad or mom would have done for them had they not been killed in action. So we are there to give them, they can cash it out, they pay the taxes on it, they can use it as a down payment for a house or for a new car or something like that. So we just try to do what their mom or dad would have done had they been here.
That's amazing.
I didn't even know there was programs out there like that.
It's super cool. And every year we do a banquet, every other year here in Statesville at the Civic Center, and I think
that's where I met you at.
Yep. And we do a name reading ceremony. So, and we ring a bell, we invite kids to come read the names. So it's like real for them. Because, Memorial Day comes and goes and it doesn't really have any real, you might see a little montage or something on TV, but you don't get up and close and personal with the families. We hug all of them with our arms. It's a big deal.
And if that being part of that bell ceremony, you ask all the people that are there, I got to tell you, I'm tearing up thinking about it. I mean,
I got chills.
it's a tremendous thing.
It is. It's really, it means a lot. And so when people come and hang out with us, they usually come back because you don't really get that experience anywhere else.
No.
Well, we're going to take a break right there. You've been listening to Putting the Pieces Back Together.
And welcome back to Putting the Pieces Back Together. If you're just now tuning in, we are here with Susan Rash, getting to hear all of her fabulous stories and career and her tribute to the troops. And
that's right.
Yeah.
But before we get to that, there's something else. It's somebody's birthday today. And I'm sorry, it's a brown paper bag, but I thought it was kind of fitting for what was inside.
Happy birthday.
Yeah. Happy birthday to Leah. It's her actual birthday.
Pickles?
I love pickles.
She is obsessed with pickles, so you can look at it now or later.
Aw,
but
you didn't forget.
I didn't forget. No, I thought, though, you might want to just take a pickle shot.
Nice.
I've got a jug of dill pickle juice here.
Oh, my gosh.
Just to wash down all these pickle items. So
I didn't even know there was such a thing.
Yeah. We would sing the happy birthday song, but Joe informed me that YouTube will take our video down.
Oh, no.
Which brings me to our next point. If you've missed any part of this broadcast, you can find it on YouTube on Purple Heart Homes page. This is a great episode. You're going to want to go back and see all of it or hear it. And you can actually see Susan's lovely face. So that you can't miss out on that. And if you want to help veterans, go to phhusa.org. We're assisting veterans with housing needs every single day. Yep.
See what we're doing? Become a Hearts of Honor donor. And right? I said that right.
Donor, member, whatever you like.
Whatever you like.
Yeah.
We appreciate everything.
Absolutely. Well, let's get back to our guest. You have some involvement with the next part of our...
Yes. So being the production manager of our tiny homes, we were able to gift a tiny home to your father-in-law, Fred Rash.
Fred Rash.
Which just, about 2 months ago, we had his mission complete ceremony where we gave him the keys to his house. And that was I got to speak at that.
I loved what you said.
Yeah.
That was beautiful.
And oh my gosh, that was such a humbling experience. And I had like this whole speech planned out. And on the way driving from Hickory, I'm like practicing what I was going to say. And I'm like, oh, this sounds great. This is going to be so meaningful. And then I get there and I'm like, you know what? This means absolutely nothing. And I just like spoke from the heart and it was
wonderful.
So touched by everything. And
I think I actually cried when you were talking.
Oh, I was crying talking. But we, being in production, we build the homes. And so we don't get to meet every veteran, just depending on where the home is being set. So to actually be able to be there and be a part of that experience, to go, wow, here's the final product of what our guys have just worked so hard to complete, was just a truly unique experience for me. And I'm just so grateful that Fred has a place to call home now and
absolutely be
close to his family.
He is a great person too. He's 92 years old, so he has seen a lot in this world.
Wow.
And he, he's a blue collar guy. I know you guys know this from being at the Mission Complete ceremony. Rocky spoke a little bit about this, but his dad never finished his education. I think he left school in the 9th grade. Because he was one of many children. You used to have a lot of children back then.
Oh, yeah.
And that was a joke that Rocky used to tell during his show, where he would say, I asked my dad one day, hey, what did you guys used to do back when you didn't have internet and Netflix and streaming? And he said, well, I have to ask my 12 brothers and sisters. But that was Fred's life. Yeah. So when his dad got hit by a car and paralyzed, he had to quit school and go to work and support the 12 brothers and sisters.
Gosh.
Yeah, he was the oldest male in the family. So he actually had his Uncle Sam called his number for the Korean War, but he had his draft call deferred 2 or 3 times because he was the sole income earner for a family of all those dependents. Wow. But he eventually ended up, Uncle Sam called and he went to Korea and he served his country for 3 years in Korea, active duty, 3 years inactive. And he didn't really serve long enough to get any real retirement benefits from that, and came to Statesville, he was hired at Kiwani, and he was, I think, the 7th employee at Kiwani, and he fixed the boilers. He was like the maintenance guy there, but real blue collar. So he didn't really ever have enough to save for retirement or to figure out, what's going to happen to me when I'm 92 years old and where am I going to live? And so when Purple Heart Homes, it started because he was living in Salisbury when Rocky's mom passed away in 97. Fred met a woman, also a widow, at a square dance, and they married.
At a square dance?
That
was the thing back then.
She drove a Cadillac. He thought he was impressed.
She was a woman of means. She had a Cadillac.
So exactly. So they married, and both families said that this was like a very happy marriage, even though they lost their spouses through death. They married, and they were very happy together. But she was on a plot of land down in Salisbury, surrounded by her family, and made more sense for him to move there because all her children and grandchildren were in houses around her. So he moved there, and then unfortunately, at some point after I think almost a decade of marriage, she broke her hip, and passed away shortly after that.
Oh my gosh.
So the family said, you can stay here as long as you want. The house belonged to her son, and he said, you can stay here, and they kept their promise. But
that's really wonderful.
And if his phone was ever off the hook or whatever, I would text and say, can somebody check on him? But it was just too far away to go pop in. It was 45, 50 minutes away.
Right.
So now at his 92-year age, he started losing his vision. He has macular degeneration. He lost his vision in his left eye, and soon the vision in his right eye will be gone. That's the way that disease works. Hold on. Sorry, guys.
No worries. That's why I usually give water to the guests. It's like, gosh,
I've got one. So anyway, he just started having more and more health issues. And it was not right for us to call the neighbor family, even though they're not really related to him, to say, hey, can you take him here? Can you do this? Can you do that? Especially with him not being able to see. Going to the grocery store, going to the VA for his appointments, not safe for him to be behind the wheel of a car. So he knew the jig was up. He was going to lose his license in November on his birthday, and he would not pass it.
On his birthday, man.
He's not going to pass an eye test.
No.
So I called John Galena, or Rocky did, my husband, and we asked John, hey, do you know of any veteran, homes anywhere, old, retirement communities? And he said, well, we've got this tiny house program, but, if he's got some land.
Yeah.
So we went to the county, we divided up our property. We had just enough land to be zoned for another place to live. And in comes Purple Heart Homes to bring this tiny home to Fred. And what a blessing it has been. We used to go maybe a week, 10 days even without, talking or seeing him. And I think when you're 92 years old and you don't really have, all your friends have passed away. He's the only, he has one surviving sister who you all met at the groundbreaking ceremony, and she lives here in Statesville.
Nice.
So, he really doesn't, he would just sit around, stare at the walls, watch Grit on television, Gunsmoke reruns.
That's the old Western show.
Yeah. But just lived a very lonely life. And now he's right behind us. Every morning when my husband goes to work, he stops over and says, hey, Dad, what do you need? What can I do for you?
That's amazing.
Yes. I cook for him. I just went over to his house on Sunday with my laptop for the first time, and we made a list on Walmart.com of his groceries. And then, it was a little sketchy for him to give me his debit card to put it into a computer, because what would happen? And I was like, no, Dad, people do this all the time. They put their credit card into the computer.
Absolutely.
So he parted with it. I put it in the computer, and about 4 or 5 hours later, we drove to Walmart, pulled up, they brought the groceries out to us, put them in the trunk, and off we went back home. So that was like a big thing for him. But I wouldn't have been able to do that with him if he didn't live so close to us. And so it's it's a blessing. But I think for more than anything, it's the loneliness. And that's one of the issues I think they talk about the most for elderly folks.
Absolutely.
They're lonely. And if you can't move into a community of your peers, living off by yourself as an older, citizen is very hard to do.
And for someone who went and fought for our country in Korea, they deserve to have their twilight years be surrounded by their family and their loved ones.
Exactly. And we live in a 1960s ranch. It's only 900 square feet. So we could have moved him in, but I don't think it would have been. It only has one bathroom. I don't think it would have been he wouldn't have felt good about that. He would have been in someone else's kitchen, and he's very set in his ways. He's very independent. He wanted to have his independence.
He'll have that freedom.
And now he does. He has his independence and his freedom and his privacy.
Yeah.
And yet we can be there and be part of his life. And he can be part of our life. Our daughter just got engaged. You know, they were going to have a little dinner over at their house, which is also right next door to us. So, he
awesome.
gets to spend time with his granddaughter and soon his future son-in-law. So I think that all in all, I can't imagine. I think Jeff McNeely, our congressional representative, said that at our he was at the Mission Complete ceremony.
He was, yes. Yeah.
And he said he felt like this was like a really inspired model for seniors, especially our senior veterans, to have the independence of a tiny house. It's not too much for them to care for, yet it gives them that opportunity. And it's wonderful that Purple Heart Homes is focused in their mission on making sure that veterans have what they need.
That's very well said.
Housing's so important. Right?
Absolutely. And for those tiny homes, that's exactly what their purpose is designed for, to give veterans the dignity of being able to live on their own.
Yeah.
And
have their own space.
I'm so glad that we were able to be a part of making that happen for Fred.
It's
and
huge.
Just seeing his humility and like seeing his appreciation for it was I don't know, I still got chills. Like I still think about that was like the most wonderful experience I've had.
It's huge. And Mary came, his sister, to visit him.
I know.
Yeah, it was an amazing thing to be part of. I hate to do it, but we've got to go take a break. We got to pay for the show, the advertisers, and all that good stuff. You've been listening, Putting the Pieces Back Together.
Welcome back to Putting the Pieces Back Together. You're joining Leah Gutierrez, Devil Dog Devin, and Miss Susan Rash.
That's right.
Yes. What an exciting couple segments we've already had so far.
Well, yeah, but in between the segments, we had to take an extended break.
Yes,
which was crazy.
Ran across the parking lot to get some wonderful news.
That's right. You want to tell them the news?
So we have completed 1,505 projects for our veterans.
Wow.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
That is crazy.
And I want to point out that, come to find out, and I didn't know this, that when you reach the age of 60, is that the VA will start going into a nursing home? Is that what he said?
You can go into a nursing home, the VA.
So that is what John said is like $150,000 a year.
Wow.
To put someone in a nursing home. And you think about how much money goes into that and taxpayers, and we're able, because of generous donations and volunteers, we're actually able to keep a veteran in their own home for an extended amount of time for like fractions.
Right. The cost of our average project, if for those of you who don't know, is $12,500. Wow. That's our average cost, which allows a veteran to stay in their home.
Yep.
So just one time of doing that, I mean, if they just stay in their house one more year, you've saved the American taxpayer $137,500.
I'm getting ready to cry.
Man, that's amazing.
That's
And that's what we do here. And if you want to be part of that, go to phhusa.org and donate now to help a veteran. And if you can't donate, get some sweat equity in there. Get on that volunteer list. There's a project coming near you.
Yep. But back to Miss Susan.
Let's get back. Yeah. So Susan, you've had a huge career in the recording industry as well. You've been with quite some big stars out there, all the like the 90s country stars like Reba McEntire.
Good country music.
Oh yeah, the good country music. What was that like?
Oh, it was crazy. I didn't really know much about country music because I grew up in Wilmington, Delaware, and Philadelphia was the next biggest city. Mm-hmm. So we got all of our media from Philadelphia. Philadelphia sports, Philadelphia TV stations, Philadelphia radio stations. And it was one of the only major markets in the United States that did not have a country station.
No kidding.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
So, aside from just being a Yankee in general, I was like really a Yankee because I didn't have
no clue.
I had no clue. I didn't even know who George Jones was until I moved to Nashville when I was.
You didn't know who George Jones was?
No.
Wow.
Well, think about it though. Like Conway Twitty crossed over and Dolly Parton crossed over. She was in 9 to 5 and Rhinestone Cowboy and all these like whatever that movie was she was in.
Yeah.
With, Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, whatever it was.
Oh, yeah,
with Sylvester Stallone. But the the country stars that crossed over into pop were the only ones I knew.
Right.
Or the ones that were on the Glenn Campbell Good Time Hour. Mm-hmm. I didn't really know any country artists. So moving to Nashville and working in the country music industry was an eye opener for me. But yeah, I loved it. And that's when Nashville was at its greatest. Now it's kind of overrun with 20-somethings posing.
It's almost all pop music now.
Yeah. It's crazy.
It's not country.
Right. But okay, so I'll give you my explanation on that very, very quickly. If you think that country music or any music is a reflection of the people who are making it, music is influenced by the music that you listen to. So country music that we all love, the old kind of classic country, was influenced by Dean Martin and Frank Sinatra and American standard music. Then the music that became country music became popular in the 80s and 90s was music made by people who were influenced by John Lennon and Paul McCartney and singer-songwriters. So that music became more like that. And then, go the Garth Brooks generation, those people were influenced by Kiss and Led Zeppelin and Aerosmith. So country music got more like rock and roll.
It did, yeah.
Now this generation... Chris Ledoux. I have a great Chris Ledoux story, which I'll tell you all later. But anyway, because I got to work 2 albums with Chris. But this generation, they were influenced by the Beastie Boys and Linkin Park and hip hop as much as they are the music they listen to today. So that's why country music has kind of taken on that sort of more hip hop element, because this younger generation that's making it, that is the music of the day for them. So old timers like us, we can complain. It's not what it used to be. It doesn't what it sounds like, but hey. It is what it is. So anyway.
So you had a funny story. I don't know if you've got enough time to tell it now. There was a story where you may have gotten tackled.
Yeah. Well, no. Okay. So I'll tell you, Rocky always says this is my brush with greatness. So I found out who George Jones was because he was signed to the record label that I was working for, MCA Records. So I eventually not only found out who he was, I used to go to the Gerst House in Nashville and have pig knuckles with him on Wednesdays, and his wife, Nancy. So anyway, George, I don't know if I'll have enough time to tell the story, but George used to have Roger Clinton in his employ. So one day I was sitting at my desk. This is the very beginning of cell phones where people could tap into your cell phone and listen to your conversation.
Clinton, Bill Clinton's brother?
Bill Clinton's brother. And Bill was up for re-election, and Time magazine was about ready to do a cover story on Roger. And they found out that he worked for George Jones for a while. So they called me. I was the publicist working at the label, and I answered the phone. And he's like, I'm this reporter from Time magazine, and we're doing a cover story on George Jones. And we understand that the president's brother worked for George for a time. Could we speak to someone in George's camp about the circumstances of his employment and then also his dismissal? I guess they had heard he had been fired.
Oh.
Yeah, so I said, all right, well, give me your number and I'll call you back. So I called Nancy Jones and on her cell phone, George's wife and manager. And I told her about their inquiry. And she said, I'm not going to talk to you on a cell phone. I'll call you back when I get to the house. Clunk. And she hung up on me. And then 15 minutes later, the phone rang and it was Nancy. And she said, well, yes, he did work for us, but we have no interest in talking about that. And I said, well, what happened? She said, well, he got fired. I said, well,
oh my.
Right. I said, well, what happened? She said, well, he was our merchandise manager and we found out he was stealing from George Jones.
No
And I said, I guess he was skimming a little off the top in the merchandise sales department. And I said, well, oh, really? Oh, that's horrible to hear. Is that why he got fired? And she said, no, he got fired for selling cocaine to the band. Who at the time were at the time called the Jones Boys. So I said, well, no wonder you don't want to talk about this. It's the president's brother. So
no kidding. Yeah.
I said, okay, well, I'll call back and I'll tell him no comment. So I hung up with her. And then as I was dialing the phone back, I thought, oh my goodness, this is the most important I'm ever going to be in this world, because I am sitting here with knowledge of dirt on the president of the United States brother, and I cannot tell it.
And there's an election coming up.
I'll never be more powerful. I'll never be in a more powerful position than I am right now. So I called up and said no comment. So anyway.
Well, yeah, you did the right thing, because that's one of those things that no matter what side.
Well, you had a career to look out for too.
Yeah.
Exactly. So someday when y'all have me back, I'll tell you my other George Jones stories. I got a couple other good ones. We went through quite a bit with George.
That's awesome.
Yeah, when I was the publicist at MCA, I was the publicist on duty when Conway Twitty had his aneurysm in his stomach on his tour bus and passed away. It was a big deal. There was a lot of moments. I was the publicist on record when the Judds broke up, and lots of and when Winona was pregnant out of wedlock, and we had to make that announcement. Lots of
and that was in the 90s when
that was a big deal.
That was a big deal then. Yeah,
that was a big deal. So
I remember the people saying scandalous things about her.
Yes,
and
that was quite the scandal.
Yeah.
So I have lots of really good stories. Rocky says I should write a book. I'm not sure.
You should.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
Well, maybe just do a series of podcasts.
Yeah. That's a good idea. But yeah, it was a great career. I had a lot of fun. And then, my last job was working for Alan Jackson. I worked as part of his management team. But, at that time I met Rocky, and I was thinking, I wanted to kind of back out of a little bit. At 22 years, that's a long time. If I'd worked for the government, I'd been retired.
That's true. Yeah. Oh, yeah, man.
So, yeah. So I have lots of gold records up on my wall, and lots of good memories, and all the MCA folks, we get together for reunions every once in a while. So yeah, if I was going to spend 20 years doing something, it was just as good as anything, but not as good as working for a charity.
Oh,
that's right.
Man.
Listen, if I had to do it all again, forget the record business. Glamorous. Yeah.
Well, we're going to put a pin in it right there.
No.
We got to go to break.
Y'all
do putting the pieces back together.
Y'all do the good work.
And welcome back. Thank you for sticking with us and listening to Putting the Pieces Back Together. We've heard some fabulous stories from Susan Rash, and
you couldn't say her name for a second. You're always giving me a hard time about not being able to say names, and there you go.
It's my day. Let me have it. Okay?
It is your birthday. I'll let you have a pass.
Thank you. But again, thank you for joining us.
Oh, that's a pleasure.
Gosh, he got me so
I got you flustered. Oh my gosh.
But we've just heard some wonderful stories and that you've done in your career. But again, we want to get back to your passion for helping veterans and your tribute
to the troops. And you have some wonderful things coming up. And yes. I mean, what Tribute does, recently we went national. So, in fact, it's funny because John Galena, co-founder of Purple Heart Homes, was he and I would talk on the phone a lot when we were going through the process of nationalizing, because when we started out, a lot of charities, that's why I love the nonprofit world, because I actually feel like if our government was really smart, they would do everything in their power to empower nonprofits. Mm-hmm. Because usually a nonprofit is started by someone that's had some kind of life-altering situation, mm-hmm. right?
That's absolutely true.
Child dies of cancer, super rare, no one's done any research on it. You start a charity to get people to focus their attention and resources on that, right? Purple Heart Homes, we all know why John and Dale started Purple Heart Homes. Tribute to the Troops, same thing. Rocky started Tribute to the Troops because it was a completely organic thing. I'll tell that story very quickly to you guys. But he wrote a song called Fly Home, and he used to perform it every night during his shows. So when he was touring anywhere, whether it was the Bank in Minot, North Dakota, or wherever he was playing, he would always stop his show and pay tribute to the veterans. Just a few minutes in the middle of his show, he would always ask, are there any veterans in the room? And they would stand up. And he would do this song called Fly Home, which was it's a tribute to those who made the ultimate sacrifice. And one time he did it in Minneapolis, and this guy came up to him and he said, I'm a film professor at Brown College or something. And he said, his name is John Murray. And he said, it was the first year of the Iraqi conflict. And they were going to put together, his students were going to put together a film paying tribute to the fallen heroes from the state of Minnesota, the state of Wisconsin, and the state of North Dakota, because they're all sort of right near each other. And at that point, I think there were 7 or 8 heroes who had lost their life in that first year of the conflict. And he said, can we use your song? And how much do you want me to pay you for it? And Rocky said, no, I don't want you to pay me for it. I just want you to bring it whatever you put together using my music, bring it to me and let me see it. So like 7 months later or something, the guy shows up with this cassette tape, or VHS, shows how long ago this was. And he comes on Rocky's bus and he plays it for him. And the video was just like general, like stock footage of different soldiers doing what soldiers do. And then when it got to the chorus, they put now I'm getting teared up. They put the photo of the fallen hero, the seal of the military, of the branch of the military that they were in, and the date they lost their life. And it was such a beautiful tribute, especially if you've heard the song Fly Home, that he immediately said to his friend Greg Schmidt, who at the time was his booking agent, hey man, we need to bring this and show this to these families. So they looked at where the families were located on the map, and he was a recreational motorcycle rider. Rocky's he's had a motorcycle longer than before he had his driver's license. And Greg was a recreational rider. So they hopped on their bikes and they rode out to the homes and brought this tape to the families. And that's how Tribute started.
No kidding.
Yep. So now we've gotten away from motorcycles. We still have bikes. In fact, here we do an event every other year. The Iredell County Sheriff's Department, Darren Campbell, his deputies accompany us to keep us safe, but we also involve cars. So if you don't ride a motorcycle, you can still participate in our events. You can still come and stand in the front yard of these families and let them know that their sacrifice did not go unnoticed. And you can come to our banquets and you can be part of our name reading ceremonies, and you can you can meet these Gold Star families and hug them with your own arms. It's a beautiful sentiment. So right now we have a cruise coming up in October. Yeah, it's the Rocky Lynn for the Love of Country cruise, and we're going to be honoring a family, doing a presentation to a Gold Star family in front of everyone in the showroom.
Wow,
and we're only going to be like a tiny part of the cruise too, because there'll be people from all over the world on this cruise, and they'll be able to see what we do for these families and be part of our mission. And if you miss that cruise, there's going to be other opportunities to participate in our events. Just go to tributetothetroops.org and you can see how you can participate with us. And we buy 529 education funds for kids who've lost a parent in active duty. So you can always make a donation and help send these kids to school. And it's just a lovely charity. And it's the nicest thing I've ever seen people do for other people, just because it's the right thing to do. And we can never forget our fallen. That's absolutely so important.
I really, what you're doing over there with Tribute to the Troops, I mean, it's so moving to see these families who we always talk about the sacrifice that a soldier, a Marine, a sailor makes. But what a lot of folks don't realize is their family is sacrificing right along with them. You don't just lose one life. You're losing the life that so many other folks knew as well.
Absolutely.
The mothers and fathers especially. I mean, you're not supposed to outlive your children.
Exactly.
And so often we forget about those who've been left behind. And so thank you for what y'all are doing over there.
It really is. Once you meet these families and wrap your arms around them, you don't want to, you never want to do anything else. Our paths cross a lot with Gary Sinise. Rocky's done a lot of shows opening for Gary. And, Gary does the Snowball Express. Every year he brings Gold Star families. I think it started in the wintertime taking families to Disney or something. Now I think they go to Dallas or something. I don't know where it is. But, and people, I've heard Gary say things too, like, well, once you've done things to help Gold Star families, you just don't, it touches your heart so much, you just can't imagine not fulfilling that mission and not including them in the things that we do. I mean, it's great to honor our heroes who are here, but honoring those who have been left behind. And once again, nonprofits like yourself, that's where you really can get into the little cracks. The government can only fix things with really broad strokes because it's big and bulky and monolithic. But charities can get into the little cracks and really fix a lot of our problems as a society, because they can and because they're motivated and they're usually micro-focused on certain issues. And most charities, all that I am aware of, because they are governed by nonprofit rules and parliamentary procedure in their boards of directors. They stay very focused on that mission.
Yes.
They don't get distracted. So it is a really great way to micro focus on some of our issues, and especially the ones that support our military. Fantastic, right?
And there's a lot of them out there, and I guarantee if there's one that if you've got a particular cause with a veteran, there's a charity for you. But two of them very close to my heart are Purple Heart Homes, where we're helping veterans with their housing needs, and Tribute to the Troops, where we're honoring those who have fallen. And so, hey, if you want to donate to either one of those, phhusa.org. And what's that website for?
It's tributetothetruths.org.
There you go.
Yeah.
And so
I know
you could
about
be
upcoming
a part.
events and.
If you go to tributetothetruths.com, the WWE or WW Worldwide Federal Wrestling
The Wrestling Federation, comes
up.
They have
one
thing.
called Tribute to the Troops.
I think they used to do an event every year.
Yeah, they don't do it anymore.
That anymore. It's kind of a dead website, I believe.
It is.
So if you go there, you're going to be lost.
It's .org.
You should ask them if they donate it to you.
Yeah, they should,
do
right?
a tax write-off.
Yeah,
Maybe
don't
they
you
do
think?
that. Hey, Vince McMahon. Oh, Vince McMahon ain't in charge anymore. Who's in charge now?
I don't know. But you're not going to see Hulk Hogan if you come to our events.
Have you asked him?
No, we haven't.
Might come.
No, but I'll tell you what, my husband's Rocky Lynn is a little factoid, huge wrestling fan.
No kidding.
Watched it the whole time he was growing up. Have you guys seen the series that's behind The Dark Side of the Ring or something like that? It's it's fantastic.
I wonder if he's met Chad.
Tells all the stories about these guys.
Has Rocky met Chad
No
Lale?
kidding.
He's a deputy. He was a wrestler on WWE.
Yeah, we had a deputy sheriff on
County.
here in Iredell County. He's a professional wrestler, Chad Lale.
I had no. Is Chad still a deputy right now?
Yeah,
He
we
is.
just interviewed
And-
him
We gotta meet
not
him.
too long
Gosh,
ago.
what was his wrestling name? Jackson Riker. And then he had another one too. But yeah, he was WWF
Well, listen,
guy.
Rocky Lynn has seen so many celebrities. You know, we've been on the red carpet at the CMAs and the Grammys and all kinds of places. He's seen so many celebrities. He's never starstruck. And we ran into Nature Boy, Ric Flair, at the Charlotte airport. And I've never seen Rocky so starstruck. He
No
was like,
kidding.
I have to go get my picture made with him.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, that's awesome.
And he did. He interrupted him. He's like, sir, do you mind? I'm a huge fan. It was really funny. And have you guys seen, there's a documentary about Ric Flair that's just amazing. I'm into the whole palace intrigue behind the scenes of the wrestling
I'd love
world.
to watch it. I'm going to start searching those up because I watched that a lot when I was younger.
Dark Side of the Ring is what it's called.
Dark Side of the Ring. I met Ric Flair when I was real little. I had always thought he was a tiny man because I saw him on TV next to much bigger people. And then I was like, oh.
Yeah. And, his daughter was a wrestler for a while, too. And a sad story about his son. Watch that documentary. It's very heartfelt. He's and he's from here. He's a Charlottonian.
Yeah, he is. He's from Charlotte. Yeah.
What do they call them? Charlatans or Charlottonians?
I think.
Charlatan. I don't think I like the name Charlatan, Susan.
Well, listen, you guys are doing great work. I want to say that before we close here today because you are doing such great work. And like I said, I reflect on, I was thinking about doing a book about my music industry career and people are like, oh, so exciting. But you know what? If I don't have any regrets in life, but if I had my whole life to do over again, I would go into the nonprofit sector because it is really and truly the most fulfilling work you can do. You're not going to get rich, but you're
Get
rich
fulfilled.
in your heart.
Yes.
And that's really the thing that matters more is when you're old, you'll appreciate what you do right now.
Absolutely.
You've been listening to Putting the Pieces Back Together.